Hey everybody, my name is John DePietro, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of My Life with Kenny Rogers. But from a viewer's perspective, the best part is that we're not talking about my life with Kenny Rogers, but we're talking about the life of our special guest, Gene Sisk, who we're going to bring on in just a minute. But first, we want to tell you that this is one of a series of special commemorative videos that we're doing, speaking with people who worked with Kenny that, in a wide variety of different areas, from sound engineer to bus driver to people that got the choirs for the great Christmas shows. Everybody who's had a relationship with Kenny, to talk about their life backstage or off stage without the great Kenny Rogers. And with that being said, I want to tell you that if you want to get a copy of every one of these videos, all you have to do is in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little red button that says subscribe. Hit that button, and then a bell will appear. Hit the bell, and then every time we do a new one of these, you will get it sent directly to your mailbox. Remember, this is not available in stores. This is a special internet offer. And with that being said, let's welcome our special guest for this segment, keyboarder, that's probably not the right word. Keyboardist and vocalist, Gene Sisk. Gene, welcome to a show about you.
Thank you. Thank you much. Appreciate the invite.
So talk about your time with Kenny. And I know that prior, I did a little research on you, but you had a part of your past where you loved rainy nights.
Yes. I met Kenny's band and Kenny, met the band first because Eddie Rabbitt was the middle act when Kenny was doing his 3-act concert tour in the round.
Yeah.
We were the second act, and the opening act was this guy no one had ever heard of named Garth Brooks. He only had one song out at the time. Nobody knew who he was. He was learning the ropes. So that gives you an idea of the time frame. That's when I first met Kenny's band. I had just gotten a new synthesizer for Eddie's gig, and I was showing it to Warren, the then newest keyboard player with Kenny. And I think I missed missed catering that night, and so did Warren, because I was showing him, this new keyboard that was just out. And look what it got me. It got me a call for the audition when the spot came open, and started this whole past 22 years of being in the Kenny Rogers family.
It's funny that you say that little missing that lunch, because there are other circumstances that, as we've talked with other band members, their being there is on such a thin thread that if they weren't in that particular place at that particular time, they wouldn't have bumped into this particular person. Right. or gone with that. And even the original guys from Kenny's band just happened to be right place, right time. And, in the music world, Gene, I'm sure you'd agree that so much of it is circumstantial, that somebody hears you at a certain time. And, I'm sure you'd agree that you never know who's in the audience.
That's right. It's it's not so much the audience. When you're touring, yes, the musical ability to pull off what is needed is tantamount. You have to be able to do the music, but to be in a touring situation, it's much more about who the person is. Who can you get along with for the other 23 hours of the day? Who can you be closed up on a tubular on a land sub? Who can you stand for the time it takes to get to the next gig, and the next take, and the next gig, and the next, and then the ride home? It's all about compatibility, and I think that's a lot that says about what the connections are, of how connections are made, not only musically, because it has to be something personal. It has to be something in the makeup of the person that they know they can deal with. I have heard
well beyond what takes place in that 90 minutes on stage.
Exactly. That's important. Yes, it is important, because that's what everybody sees. But as far as the community, as far as the family, as far as getting together, the ability to just be one of the guys on the bus. I've heard the story that I was not the first call for this spot, the spot that I wound up with. They actually gave it to another guy, but he wound up being a pain on the bus.
It's funny you say that, because I thought that story pertained to Brian, where Brian was the first call. But you know what? And I think Steve mentioned that they had somebody, but in the other 22 and a half hours, they were not compatible. And
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
from that perspective, which leads me to say, well, give me the years that you did the Kenny thing, and then I want to go back to what goes on off stage, because I
Okay.
think it's important to put in
I
perspective
joined.
how many years you were there.
Okay, I joined Kenny for the Christmas tour of 1996. Before that, I'd been with Eddie Rabbitt for 12 and a half years, and before that for Crystal Gale for about 8 months. So I'm in a unique position now where I've had really basically a touring life of 36 years with three basic artists, basically,
Which is so rare.
which is very rare.
Mhm.
And now in Rabbitt's years, he only toured only 8 or 9 months out of the year, so I had to find something else. So in those other 3 months, I worked with the Judds, I worked with Michael Johnson, I worked with Bill Medley, the low view, never close your eyes, that guy from the Righteous Brothers, and several other acts, but just from here to here, just to get me from where Rabbitt wasn't playing back to when Rabbitt was playing.
Yeah, during that time period. Because it should be pointed out that musicians don't get into a career as a musician for the money. I mean, they
No,
really have to love
no,
the craft.
no. I had a guy I went to high school with, actually all 12 years, first grade through senior year, who posted something on Facebook the other day where he thought he was not that he thought he was successful, but he thought I was unsuccessful because I didn't build up the money that he'd built up. Now I get it that he's financially secure. I get that, but he hasn't been to 6 of the 7 continents on the earth. He hasn't played for millions of people who sometimes can't even speak English, but they know your music.
They know your music. Yeah, and you know what? There was the travel. Talk about where you've been.
Okay, like I said, I've been on 6 of the 7 continents. The only continent I've not been to, they've never had a concert. That's Antarctica.
Antarctica, way down south. Way
That's
down
the
south.
only one that I've not been to, and that's the reason why, because they've never had a concert there. I'm sure if there was enough people, Kenny would have done it.
Okay, I'm throwing you on the spot. I'm throwing you under the bus, not under the bus, but I'm putting you on the spot with this one.
Okay.
The coolest place not cool by temperature, but
Right. The coolest place.
that you'd say, or most unique.
Oh, that's hard. That's hard to do. The most unique. All right. Well, in terms of size, the number of breathing bodies that we were playing to had to be Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Glastonbury, England, like 180,000 live people. It's like, Woodstock for the English. And we were the test run of country music. Everybody else on that had been in the rock or in the grunge rock or some kind of rock or pop vein. And Kenny, they put Kenny there, and he went over marvelously. He captured the crowd from beat one, from the first song. And that was a fun thing. You just can't imagine. Before that, I had done an outdoor show with Rabbitt, an outdoor show in Virginia, I think, or West Virginia, that was 110,000 people. And I thought that was mind blowing. But the top number of people I'd ever played for wound up being in 2016, 2013, because it was the last day of my 50s. The next day after we played Glastonbury I turned 60 years old.
60 years old. Okay. So, interestingly, you said from the first note, and I also told that the Rolling Stones had just played there the night before.
They played there the night before, yes.
Okay. So, you just interestingly said that they were in it from the first note.
Right. There's a certain amount of energy, of expectation that the crowd gets. You can feel this energy coming from the crowd because all these people are intent on watching that area, of their lives, and they're going to devote their attention to you for the next however long, hour, 90 minutes, whatever.
So as a member of the cast, you could feel that, and does that make you want to perform better?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There have been shows with, not so much with Kenny, but with Eddie, that you knew the crowd could care less. And it's not because of things they said. It's not because of how quiet they are or how noisy they are. It's It's a matter of the attention that they're trained on you before you've ever done anything. While you're still getting your stuff ready, while you're getting your water bottle all set, while you're getting your world ready to play, these people are watching. And once that blotting, blotting, da da ba ba da starts of the concert, the energy is released. It's like, okay, there's our energy coming for you.
Yep.
And that's what I mean by the first note. You could tell these people were anticipating it and got what they wanted from the very beginning.
Now, it's so interesting that you said Glastonbury, because when I talked with Chuck this time yesterday, asked him the same question. He said, without question, Glastonbury. And, you know, that was the scene of Chuck's jump heard around the
Yes.
world, where he jumped up on the band set.
Yes,
And,
I have. If you look at my, I don't know, this will not apply to anybody else, but John, if you look at the ID, little circle of my ID on Zoom here, it's got a picture of me. It's a picture I took on that show of my face, and Chuck is back here in the background,
okay.
facing the other way. That was taken that day at Glastonbury.
That was that day, yeah. So obviously your bandmates felt that energy, and you know, it probably translated into one hell of a show.
I think it's a two-way street. It's definitely a two-way street. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be English. I felt that in Japan. I felt that in Taiwan. These people were ready to party.
And they were
And
singing back the
they were
song, even
singing
though it
back. They
wasn't there.
probably didn't know what Lucille is, so they probably didn't know what the words that they were singing, but they knew enough to sing it back. Yes.
Yep, amazing.
His universality is the universality of his appeal is still just astonishing to me. It really,
Yep.
really is.
Yep. And it's ironic because today we didn't plan it this way, but today's Kenny's birthday, and you know, I know you and I and many others have been together on many of the birthdays. There we go. Many of the birthdays when they're out on tour, because it seemed as though many of those August dates were in New England, whether they be at Cape Cod or at Cohasset or somewhere up here. You know, which leads me to another question. Because Kenny passed, what, it was 5 months ago yesterday, according to what somebody told me.
Yes. March 20th.
But because it was in the COVID time period, there was never a public funeral or gathering or anything along those lines.
Right.
So
he passed on the day that Nashville closed up. The day that Nashville shut down.
Isn't that interesting? I didn't realize that.
After that, that's when all these regulations started coming out during this pandemic here, that nobody could get together in larger groups of insert number here, I think. Yeah. And we've not had the opportunity to get together and just be a family around Wanda and the kids. And that's something we all want to do. And I know Chuck told you about the TV taping that we're going to do. We're getting everybody together Monday to do a closed circuit thing for one of the ex-band members, for Edgar, who's going to show it out in California. And we're all looking forward to that because we get to be back together.
Yep. Yeah. And everybody said, like you just said, there hasn't been that closure.
Right. Right.
And, you know, in certain religions, like Chuck said it so good yesterday, certain religions, you know, you have the funeral, you know, you go to the church, and then you go to, you know, you have the calling hours, then the church, and then the cemetery. And when you leave the cemetery, it's kind of like,
there's the door. We can shut that door now.
Let's move on, kind of thing. But this is one of those things that we were driving up to Maine last week, and I had a Kenny CD on, and I said to my wife, it kind of feels like we're driving to a show. And I'm going to go around the corner, and the buses are going to be there, and the truck is going to be there, and I'll walk in, and Sisk will be reading a book, Chuck will be on a computer, you know, that type of thing. But I think everybody kind of needs that, and we need this COVID thing to get done with so we can just get back together and hug. Agreed?
Yes, you're right.
Yep. So from that perspective, you know, you were talking before about when you got hired, you could not only get together with the gang on stage, but deal with the other 23 hours of the day, 22 and a half, because the show was 90 minutes. So Describe to our viewers what an average day was like in the life of a touring musician from, let's say, the last beat of Islands in the Stream when you push that microphone away and you go off stage. Give us that, and then till the next downbeat.
Okay. We, with Kenny, were very lucky that we had a crew that did so much for us. So when we got off stage, we left the equipment the way it was, didn't have to turn it off, didn't have to unplug anything. You split from the stage, you go back to the dressing room, you get out of your show clothes, back into your bus travel clothes, back to your bus clothes. You get on the bus. Sometimes you wait for pizza because sometimes
Pizza, yeah, pizza.
Just for that little late wash kind of thing after you've already, I'll get to that later. But okay, so you eat the pizza, the bus starts to move, you kind of start settling in, you get your, if you jammies kind of thing, and you just relax and let the bus lull you to sleep, I guess. Then, depending on how far it is to the next city, you get into the bunk, you close the blinds, and you're asleep.
Now, how many times, did you get in the bus, pull the curtains, and have no idea where the next stop was?
No, I can't do that. I've got to know. I just can't let the bus driver point us in this direction or that direction. I'm too much of not a control freak, but I need to know what is going on around me.
Yeah, how long the ride is.
And how long the ride is. One of the things I ask before of the bus driver when I get on the bus is how long we got tonight. He'll go, oh, we got about 8 hours. And we've got to stop once for fuel. And he pretty much knows what questions I'm going to ask him. So he had all that info at his fingertips by the time he saw me coming to get on the bus. So you're in your bunk. And I don't have a problem at all getting moved by the bus to go to sleep. So I'm lucky that way.
Let me stop you one more time. You're in your bunk. Where's your feet and where's your head?
Your feet are always to the front of the bus.
Why?
Because if your head was to the front of the bus and they had to stop suddenly, you'd break your neck.
So you're better off breaking an ankle than your neck.
Well, you've got the shock absorption of your legs and your feet to absorb any kind of shock, any kind of sudden stop.
Yep.
If the bus, say, were to hit a deer or something, or anything.
Yeah.
You always, that's the rule of the bus. You have to sleep with your feet towards the front, towards the driver.
Snoring ever an issue from your bandmates?
Yes.
Yes.
Fortunately,
you say that without any hesitation whatsoever.
Not any hesitation. Now, in Kenny's band, in Rabbit's band, we had a snorer. He would snore, and you could hear him all over the bus when he snored. I crap you negative.
First time I heard that term that way.
Well, that's cleared up, cleaned up for sanitation, that kind of thing. But yes, we had a snorer, but we had a snorer on the bus, on Kenny's bus, or two, depending on where they'd sleep, whether they're sleeping on their sides or on their back, what part of the night, how deeply asleep they were. Yes, we had one. I'm not going to name it. It's something you get used to. I mean, you live with these 6, sometimes 7 other guys on the bus, and it's just part of being a family.
Okay. Now, 6 or 7 guys. Was there a time when there was a young lady that was on the bus with you?
Remember, she was the 7th guy. Let's put it that way. We did have some moments where she opened the door to the hallway where our bunks were, and we'd be in the middle of changing. There were some oops moments. Yes, there were, but we all just kind of accepted it. It's like okay. There's a girl on the bus. There's a chick in the band. There's a girl on the bus.
Yep. Amber was special for many years, and now she has 2 beautiful little kids.
Now she does. Oh, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous kids.
And as a result of an office romance.
That's right. And she and Aaron met on this gig.
Yep. Okay, so now I interrupted you. So now
now you're asleep. Okay. In the morning, the crew buses go to the venue. The band bus usually goes to the hotel. It's really basically a cleanup room. You get off the bus, probably usually in time for hotel breakfast. You eat breakfast, you go to your room. If there's time, you lay down on a non-moving mattress and get some more sleep, a little nap here and there. You get up about, you wake up or so, about 1:32, and take your shower, do your ablutions, do whatever it takes to you to get in the mood. Get back on the bus. They'll leave a notice on the bus that says bus call at so and so, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, whatever.
Meet in the lobby.
No, the bus moves at certain time.
Right.
So you're on the bus when it moves. You go to the gig. You get to the gig. You walk in. Say hi to everybody. Let's find out if there's any problems for that particular place, any problems with the stage, any problems with the equipment, anything that we've got to, anything special that we've got to take care of, that we've got to be aware of for that one show. And then sound check is usually about between 3 and 4:30. If there's a room set up with our backstage equipment, backstage keyboards, and we will go down there and run through some music backstage. Depends on what time of year, whether there's been a new release, whether we're learning some new material for the next, maybe the next month of shows, kind of thing. So then we'd have dinner, the catering dinner, which were always spectacular. Well, I won't say always, but 99 times out of 100 were just, that's another thing about Kenny. You were saying in the interview the other day that nobody leaves Kenny to go do another gig. That's because Kenny's the way he treats his road family was top of the line. You can't get any better than that. I'm so lucky to have been a part of this thing for 22 years and treated basically top of the line. I can't say enough for that. He made sure, I guess this has to do with his years that he was a band member and with the First Edition and other groups. I think he made a little mental note to treat his people well.
Yep.
Or have his people treated well, let's put it that way.
Yeah. And when you talk about the catering, of course, there were special ones in New England because you got lobsters and
absolutely
food
and
that type
and
of thing.
Lobsters, and in Australia, the promoter there made sure that we ate top of the line down there. We had some fantastic steaks down there. Oh.
The thing that amazes me doing this series of interviews is what you guys remember, because the general public thinks that all this stuff is just forgotten. But when I ask what some of the little quirks were that y'all remember, I'm even fascinated that even comes back into your mind, where somebody can say, it happened on a certain show in a certain year in a certain venue during a certain song when somebody missed a note or something along those lines. So now you're done the pregame meal. Okay, it's probably what, 6:30, 6:45. Showtime is 7:30 or 8.
Right.
And what do you do?
Okay, you get back into the dressing room and start your mantra. Start whatever it is it takes for you to get into the frame of mind to do it.
Mental thing.
Get your mental. It's a mental thing of, okay, I'm gonna just block everything else going on in my life out from what I have to concentrate on for the next until Islands is over with. And that's basically what I do. I will have maybe a glass of wine, but I was the only one that drank wine out there. There's not a lot of boozing. Everybody thinks it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but it ain't, because if you do that, you can't do the show. It's preparing yourself for the energy it takes to do the show to the best of your ability. And that's if it's reading a book, if it's doing crossword puzzles, if it's entertaining your mind or just emptying your mind. It depends on the person. That's why you'll always get a different answer.
Now, when you, okay, so now you're dressed and somebody will say, who would yell places? Would that be Keith, or somebody would yell places? So you're on the side of the stage, and again, depending upon whether it was an opening act or not, right? Getting ready. So you go on stage. When you hit those spotlights and you get seated, do you go into a zone?
That's yes, definitely. That's what I was saying. It was, you get into that frame of mind, that mindset that, okay, it's dark now, but it's about to be really, really bright. And then you get your motor going and you go. The blotting, da da ba da da, and after that, it's you let that take you to get to the end, and then you wake up at the end. I mean, there's certain
You
things that
wake up
happen
at the
during the
end.
show that,
Yeah.
but mostly, I'm not saying it's cruise control. I'm not saying that, because that's not really what that doesn't give you a picture of what a musician has to do on stage. You're constantly listening. If okay, let me back up a little. If you're on stage and something happens, you have to be able to cover it. And if there's something that Kenny does, if he pulls out a song that you're not used to doing, you have to, okay, what did I play on that song? What sound did I? Okay, I've got that. I had the strings on that song. No, I'm Rhodes on that song. Um, there's certain things that there's a mind. It's all about mindset.
Yeah.
It's all about mindset. You
Yeah.
have to be prepared for whatever's coming, whatever gets you to the end, to the bows.
Now, unlike Chuck and Randy, you had a role in background vocals.
Yes.
So did that mean you had to be even more attuned to every word of Kenny?
Yes, but it's easy though, because Kenny, on the parts that we sang with him, Kenny knew to stay uh, close to the script. Um, he would on other stuff, on stuff he knew he was singing by himself, he could take his own liberties.
Okay.
But if you can't,
That's
as a
interesting.
star, you can't take liberties, because the other two parts have to follow you,
Yeah.
and that would be Steve and me. Here's Kenny, and the other two parts have to follow you, because that's a successful background harmonies.
Interesting. Interesting.
And as also one thing as a vocalist that you were always talking about catering, having all this food backstage. You have to stay away from chocolate. At least I had to stay away from chocolate, because chocolate clogged up my vocal cords, and it was harder for me to hit those notes in falsetto, because I was the highest part. It's harder for me to hit those falsetto notes if I had had chocolate before. So I had to deny chocolate.
And let me tell you, there were a lot of places with those triple layer chocolate cakes, right?
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh
Wouldn't you
yes.
say desserts were the downfall of a lot of people on that tour?
Well, if you could see my stomach, you'd agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, as you spoke with other people, in your profession about getting a gig for 20 years with one person, so rare.
It was unheard of, really. In country music, they've got a little more continuity than any other styles of music, because there are people that have been in bands for. There's a guy in Crystal's band that was in it when I was there, that is still in it right now, and Crystal's still performing.
Crystal Gale.
Crystal Gale. So there are certain benchmarks and certain artists that are still performing all these years later, and certain people who have pledged their allegiance, let's say that, to the audience, to the artist.
Okay, I'm going to throw some names out to you, and I don't have them written down. I'm just going to, off the top of my head, and people that you worked with, and just talk about them for a second. Linda Davis.
Beautiful, always positive. That's one of the things I marvel about her. She always tries to bring the optimistic, the what's that saying, glass half full kind of attitude to anything. And she was always there, and always there at rehearsals to try to help, to try to aid what we were trying to do. Linda Davis, okay.
Okay, so Keith, Jeff, and Frank.
Rocks, absolute, just the rock, the solid, the planes of steering of a boat.
Okay, we should, for our audience, at
Okay.
least,
All right, Keith.
explain who they are.
Okay, Keith. To tell you how far he goes back, he was a roadie for the first edition, which gives you an idea of how long he's been associated with Kenny Rogers. Frank had been there since, I think he said in his interview, since the early '90s.
Could be.
And because you and he were talking about his hair, and he was saying
Yeah,
that was in the
right.
80s.
That's right.
uh, he always had your world all set up for you so that there were no surprises. For me, that's another that it goes back to saying that about the crew.
Well, in
Jeff,
your case, it was more because you had the vocals plus the keyboard
right.
to deal with,
This
right?
had to be right. I had to have the right mix, and I had to have the right sounds under my fingers.
Yeah, and he
And
was
he
the
was a
monitor guy.
master. He was a master at the continuity of what his band members needed. I will always thank Frank. Jeff Metter was the lighting guy, and he would set the mood no matter what was given him. Some stages didn't accept the columns that we had that were lit from inside by different colored lights. He always made the best. When I first met the group, this was when Kenny was doing his thing in the round, they were using lasers. And Kenny was one of the very first artists in country music to use lasers. And I thought it was just such a cool thing. And then when I got with Kenny, he was telling me of what all he had to do to make that work, and how dangerous they were. He had to make sure that the travel, if the lasers moved at all, like they do sometimes,
Yeah.
they had to be away from the audience. They couldn't be in the throw of any audience's eye. I was always amazed. And just as a man, I will always sing his praises. And any crew that he had, any crew that we always had the best. These are some fun guys that are rocks,
Yeah.
and they knew that what we wanted, and they knew what they could give, and it just meshed with everything.
You know, and it's funny because it seems as though that all the meals that I was able to leech from you guys backstage prior to the shows, it wasn't the performers sat at one table, the band
Yes.
sat at another table, and the
Yes.
crew. There was no caste system.
Right.
That everybody really, they couldn't have faked it for 35 years. They really enjoyed each other's contribution to the act.
Yes, indeed. I can't say it any better than that.
Missed the road?
Definitely.
You did go out. You did go out a few times as a substitute performer for Ronnie Milsap.
Well, Ronnie Milsap, yeah.
Yeah.
And his band is on a smaller scale, the same family. And they knew that I was the interloper, the new guy, and they extended every courtesy they could and tried to open their arms and make me part of their world. And I think for the few dates that I have before COVID closed all this down, the few dates that I have done, I think they've shown my inclusion in their family.
Yeah. Oh, we have to mention Jamie because he'll pay me if I say Jamie Brantley.
Jamie was the first person I met from the band.
Yeah. And he was a guy that helped me with some tickets at a show that you weren't even at. It was in Woodstock. It was in Woodstock, Connecticut, where you guys had played a few years ago, where there was that one summer that you played Woodstock, New York, Bethel, New York,
yeah,
and then Woodstock, Connecticut. So 2 Woodstocks in the same summer. But what would you say as a final question was the best life lesson that you learned from being around Kenny and the organization, or as I call it, the entertainment family?
The lesson that I got was treat the folks around you as you would like to be treated. And I think everybody was successful at that. They if there was a rare argument, everyone would try to do their best to knit that rip back together. The best thing, I guess, was just the treatment. Just treat the people around you the way you want to be treated, and I guess that's the biggest life lesson. I'd love to say hello, and I'd love to give every one of them a hug right now.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
To be back together and do
yeah. And you know what? Your voice went down a little bit. Did you hit something?
No. I haven't.
It went down a little bit, but the band is getting back together again. Talk about how that must make you feel.
Oh, I can't wait. Actually, I'm kind of worried because I may have forgotten. Let's see, what did I play on that song? I mean, but usually once it starts, muscle memory kicks in and your fingers know where to go. My only problem is, let's see, what sound did I use on that song? Was I the Wurlitzer song? Was I the Rhodes? Was I the strings? You know, that's really my biggest fear about this TV thing coming up. And not having used my voice, because I do have the highest parts and really, and some of the lowest parts. So my voice has to be ready to hit anything, top or bottom. I'm worried that my voice is not as limber as it used to be because I've not exercised it as much as
Yeah, you're right. Exactly right. So Gene Sisk, we want to thank you so much for taking time from your busy day to be part of this, what's turning into a pretty special series, in that everybody that I talk to says, you know, you need to talk to this person, that person. So now the list is growing and growing, and we've even talked to a couple choir directors, you know, that weren't part of, you know, the year-round crew like you are,
Right.
that have said, you know, the band made us feel so great, and everybody made us feel so great. And it seems to be that's the underlying theme, that everybody felt kind of special. So with that being said, we want to tell you folks that if you enjoyed this and want to make sure you see everyone in the series, just hit that red button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and then a bell will appear, and hit the bell. And every time we do a new one, you'll be part of it. So Gene Sisk, we want to thank you so much. And we're looking forward to seeing the Kenny Rogers Band out on the road again. And thank you for your time today.
It's hopefully coming to a city near you.
Great. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.